Everything looked good on his end. The only thing left on the sale was the inspection, and Perry was sure that his penthouse would pass with flying colors. He had kept the house up and had been proud of the way it looked. The young couple who were moving in seemed to be very nice. They seemed to be very excited about the purchase of the penthouse. He had told them that he had been very happy there, but he was now getting married and they wanted to purchase a home. That was the only reason why the penthouse was up for sale at all. The couple had seemed pleased with his answer and had spent a long time out on the terrace. He knew that was what had been the place where he had felt most comfortable. It had been the place where he and Della had looked out and watched the lights of the city and the stars in the sky. He was going to miss the rooftop. But his new home was wonderful. That evening had been the first meal that they enjoyed at the new house. Della made a roast with potatoes and her famous candied carrots. The stove worked fine, and as they sat down to a glass of champagne along with their dinner with candlelight, they clinked their glasses together and smiled. "To a wonderful life in our new home," Perry said with a smile, and clinked his glass with Della's. "To a long life in our new home," Della told him. Lori and the other girls had been planning the shower for Della. They would be having it at the Kavanagh the Saturday night before the wedding. She had wanted to wait to have the shower until her parents and Perry's parents would be in town. Most of the family would be there that Saturday, and she knew that Dave and Paul had plans for a bachelor party for the same night. It was going to be great, and she had found the most beautiful monogram towels for them. She had never seen a house with so many bathrooms. Including the 2 baths in the pool house, they had 5 bathrooms. The 5 of them had just put everything away when they saw Della coming into the yard. Della was not surprised to see her bridesmaids together this late. She knew that they must have been planning her shower. She was sure that it was going to have to be soon. The wedding was in just 4 weeks from yesterday. Della had heard from her parents, and they had told her that they would be out there for a week before the wedding. They were coming out with her best friend, who was going to have to go to Carrie's as soon as she got there so that Carrie could finish fitting her in her gown. Nancy was excited about the wedding and could not wait to see her, and Della could not wait to see her again. They had not seen each other in almost 2 years. The 5 friends sat together in the living room and laughed and joked together. They left the house at 10 as they all had to go to work in the morning. Even Lori had to go to work the next day. Her honeymoon was over as far as having the time off. Della worked every day and was glad that the office was busy. It kept her mind off of her personal life. The time was getting short, and finally all of the invitations had been taken care of. Her windows would be decorated on Friday and the house would be ready with a week to spare. Perry was glad to hear from the realtor that everything was set with the sale of the penthouse and that he would need to be out of there no later than the 15th. He had it all set up to be completely emptied on the 15th. So he would have someone come in and clean the house from top to bottom, and he would be all set for the biggest day of his life. Paul knocked on the back door of Perry's office and smiled. He knew that his best friends were getting married in less than 3 weeks. He took a seat in his favorite chair and asked his friend, "So how did the sale go on the penthouse? Are you going to be homeless for long?" "No, I will be fine. There is only going to be 4 nights that I need to find a place to stay. I could stay at the pool house if I wanted to, but I think that I will stay right here in the office. The first night that I stay at my house, I want to be married and stay with my wife." Perry told him, "You can stay at my home. We have the room." Paul offered, "Thank you again, but Dave is coming too and I might room with him. It depends on the workload here in my office too." Perry told him with a smile. "Everything looks as though it is set though." The man called about the tuxedo and said that mine was ready to be worn. I can pick it up on the Thursday before your wedding. Have you done everything? Is there anything else that you need help with? He asked him. No, it looks as if everything is ready. He looked around the corner to make sure that Della was not coming into the room and showed Paul the tickets to the cruise of a lifetime. They would be gone for 6 weeks and would stop in Hawaii and a few other islands. It was going to be a wonderful trip and they were going first class all of the way. Once we have moved in and are back from our honeymoon, Della and I would like to have you and Sue over for dinner. The house is so large and there will be plenty of times for us to enjoy time together. You should bring your bathing trunks with you too. Della told him. I will hold you to the invitation. Paul told him with a smile. Della had shown up at the door and smiled at her two friends. She had heard Perry invite Paul over and she concurred. It was going to be great once they moved into their home. We do want to have you over. For sure, Paul. You and Sue are like family to us, she told him with a smile. The next day would be the last day of work for Perry Mason and Della Street for the next 7 weeks. They were going to get married in a week and there was a lot to do that week. The moving company was coming out on Tuesday and they wanted to get everything unpacked if they could before they were married. Perry had packed as carefully as he could, but there were boxes and boxes for him to put away. In his study he knew just how he wanted his books to be placed on the shelves. He could not have anyone help him unless he was there with them. He had so many books and he did not want to have to search for one of the books when he was busy on a case. The study was going to take him days, he was sure. Many of his things were crystal and his best dishes and things like that. He could put them in the dining room and have the professionals put them away if Della did not have the time. But he would let Della ask him. He knew that she wanted to do the house the way that she wanted. Friday was the rehearsal dinner and he was sure that his bachelor party was going to be tomorrow night and Della's bridal shower was to be the same night. His mother and father were due to come that evening. Della's parents had already arrived in town and Lori and Mike had gone to get them. They would be staying at Della and Lori's house once more. So far everything was going well and he was almost ready for the big move. That night Della and Perry worked until 10 and finished the packing of his penthouse completely. They had just sat down to take a small rest when the bell rang. Perry looked and saw that Dave was at the elevator. He was glad to see his brother and welcomed him into the home for one last time. Dave smiled at his brother and gave Della a big hug. The house was in utter chaos with boxes all over the room, but he could tell that Perry was ready for the big move. I am going to miss the old place, Perry. I have been coming up here for over 5 years. Are you sure that you have a place for me to sleep? He asked his brother with a smile. Yes, the beds are still ready for use, but we will be living in a hotel as of tomorrow. I have reserved us a room on the Queen Mary until we are married. Perry told his brother with a smile. You could stay at my house, you know, or at the new house. Della told him. No, I told you not until we are married. I want my first night at the house to be with you, Della. I want everything to be done right. We can manage for a week and then we will be off for a long-needed honeymoon. Perry told her and put his arm around her waist. Dave was excited also. Perry had always been his big brother and he was happy that he had found such a wonderful lady. Della was a sweetheart and when she and Della were together you could feel the electricity in the air. Saturday night would be the bachelor party and the shower for Della. He hoped that everything was going to work out, but he and Lori had been planning the day for weeks. He just had not thought that Perry's house would be in such a mess. He hoped that things would be in his new home as he thought tomorrow night. If not, Della didn't know how he was going to get Perry off of the ship. He knew that if he was at the new house busy with Perry, that he could convince him to go out with Paul and Mike. They would be meeting at the lodge once again for a long night of fun. Lori was glad when Della told her that she was going to go over to the new house and put away some more things. The wedding was just a week away and all of Perry's things were now all around the house and needed to be unpacked. Perry had said that he would take care of the study. Della went in and saw box after box piled up in the study and was glad to get going on the unpacking of the other things. Della was upstairs working on the master bedroom when Sue and Donna showed up to help with the unpacking. They were great friends and Della was glad for the help. There was so much stuff to put away and between the three of them they had the room all set up by 1 o'clock that afternoon. Sue and Donna had to keep an eye on the clock because they wanted to make sure that Della was ready for the cabin that evening where they were going to have the bridal shower. Lori had let Gertie go to the airport to pick up Nancy. Della had no idea that Nancy was coming in earlier. Gertie was going to take Nancy over to Carrie's bridal salon and get her fitting 3 days earlier also. Carrie had been thrilled to get her early. She had been worried that the dress might not be done in time. But now she was sure that everything would work out. The three women came down the stairs and found Perry, Paul and Hamilton Berger sitting at the kitchen counter, enjoying a glass of lemonade. It was hot in the garage as the garage did not have the central air that the house did and they were all tired. They smiled at the ladies and asked them about lunch. Della had been shopping and so she got out some sandwich meat and proceeded to make them some sandwiches and chips. They all took a seat at the kitchen table and ate their fill of lunch. Both groups worked until 4 that afternoon and then Lori and Dave managed to get Della and Perry apart long enough to get them ready for their surprise shower and bachelor party. It had been a long day and Della was tired, but she knew that the shower was tonight. She could tell by the chatter that her friends were having between themselves. Every time she came into the room the chatter would stop. Her mother and father were coming in the morning for the week and she could not wait. Della and Lori did not to get to see her family as much as she would like to and she hadn't seen them since Lori's wedding. Perry's parents were supposed to arrive sometime today but neither Perry or her had heard from them yet. She thought that Perry's mother might be there for the shower. She hoped she would. His mother was nice and Della was determined to have them get along. She wanted her marriage to be a pleasant one to everyone involved if she could.